Good or bad, at least we can agree it's better than Dinosaur with Stephen Fry. Hello and welcome back to Tricolor Gaming with me, Fletcher. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my final thoughts over the completed Prehistoric Planet Season 2. This will be a fair and balanced video, so this is a warning in advance that I will be discussing criticisms. If you disagree with anything I say, that's good. Leave a comment and let's have a discussion. Right, so where shall we start? Let's agree on what Season 2 transplanted from Season 1 that is still good. The first and most obvious feature here is the CGI. The quality of the CGI is still brilliant. Pachycephalosaurus has never looked so good. They clearly maintain the standard of work we saw in Season 1, and all the new species and animals that come to Season 2 all have the same level of quality and perfection within them. When the Zalmoxes is on screen, you can count every single scale. When the Ostroraptor is fishing, you can see every single feather, like you could go up to it and just pluck one out. And a special mention here to Alex Digging of the Times newspaper, who claimed the CGI looked cheap. You, sir, need to arrange an appointment with your optician because you're speaking 100% gold grade nonsense. Do some scenes look slightly strange? Of course they do, but there's a big difference between that and saying the CGI looks cheap. It isn't just the quality of the CGI that is still good, it is also the quality of the animation. Every animal emotes with just a glance, whether it's the T-Rex with its toothy grin while it watches its prey, the devil toad's clear annoyance of the sauropods invading its swamp, or the final breaths of the Alamosaurus. Every animal has life, and you can really feel that through the quality of the animations. If anything, I would say that sometimes they're too safe with the animations they use, but more on that later. Amongst the other positives transplanted over, there is of course the one and only Sir David Attenborough. At 97 years old, still knee-deep in his work, showing off the natural world. I really want him to get to 100 so that he can become the first 100-year-old still on TV. His narration is still as perfect and poetic as always. There is an almost Shakespearean quality to some of his narrations that really add to the scene. Some standouts here include his narration of the T-Rex hunt and his narration of the Pachycephalosaurus rutting. Without him, this show would be worse for it. And unlike some other documentaries we could mention, it is clear he brings just as much effort to talking about these animals that are, let's just be honest, green screen ghosts, as he does to real animals. You get the impression he would be just as comfortable in the wilds of 66 million years ago as he is in the Arctic today. And speaking of big names, you also have that amazing soundtrack, the result of having Hans Zimmer working on the project. The music of Season 2 remains brilliant, from that stirring opening theme tune, which is even better if you hear the long version, to the big bass themes of the T-Rex, to the cheerful playful music of the Beelzebufo, or the racy music of the Raptor Hunt. It all aids in creating the mood for the show, much like how Walking with Dinosaurs' music was just as vital to the show's success. Who, for example, still remembers the music that plays the first time we see the Ornithocheirus. And sound design is just as important as the music. Every animal has a distinctive voice and a distinctive sound, whether it's the bellows of the Triceratops or the annoyed grunts of the devil toad. Every animal has its own soundtrack. Now, these are all things that Season 2 maintained from Season 1, so while it's good that this is the case, Season 2 doesn't get any points for this. These are things we expected the show to have and maintain. So let's move on to the good things the Season 2 does. The first thing the season needed to do was to introduce us to plenty of new animals, or focus more on the animals that didn't get much time in Season 1. Season 2 is mostly a success here. We have new animals such as the Pectinodon, the Chartia, and the Isis. And these new species all get plenty of time on screen, forming the focus of key moments, while returning species like Beelzebufo get dedicated scenes too, where they previously had just been backdrop animals. In total, Season 2 gave us 22 new species of animal, not including specific species of ammonites, birds or crocodiles, and 19 returning species from Season 1. So a fair balance there of new species. And it should be noted the range of species that we got, not just dinosaurs, but aquatic animals and non-dinosaur species. Amongst my favourite new animals are the tarchia, a brainy ankylosaurid known for having a very large skull compared to similar ankylosaurids, and the Simosuchus, a little vegetarian crocodile, who I think we were all rooting for against the unicorn-horned Majungasaurus. It is nice to see, amongst the new species, lesser-known animals like the Simosuchus and the Tethysandros. While it's species like T-Rex and Triceratops that bring folks into documentaries like this, it's the new species that keeps hardcore dinosaur fans invested. And it was good that many of these new animals got dedicated, focused sections that weren't just background dressing for the others. Unlike Season 1, which ended episodes with a link to the website, Season 2 came with 5-minute end of episode sections that went into the real-world science for these animals. There are quite a few of these, including a few bonus ones available to watch. Unlike Dinosaur with Stephen Fry, it's very clear the show is using the most up-to-date research and science that they can. The evidence is clear and well presented, and while perhaps a little oversimplified, it makes it digestible to an audience that doesn't spend time reading scientific papers. And there's no silly gaffes, which is good considering Susie Allosaurus weighs 15 tons maidment is part of the show's team. The questions asked are also very good ones. Why do we think giant pterosaurs hunted on the ground? Did Isis really use lava fields as nesting grounds? Did pachycephalosaurs really headbutt? These are all very good questions to ask, especially as without the scientific sections, these sorts of behaviours might be the sorts of things that less well-versed watchers might label as interpretations or hypothetical behaviour. That being said, I think these sections could have been a little longer so that more of the detail could have been explained, but on the whole, Season 2 did a very good job of making the science easily approachable. Having an interest in prehistoric life for as long as I have noticed there are two camps when it comes to colour. The dinosaurs should have realistic colours like browns, greys and greens camp, and the camp that says actually maybe some of them had brighter, more distinct patterns. You do also have that weird group that paints them purple or turns a T-Rex into a chicken, but we don't talk about them. Anyway, Season 2 managed to find the sweet spot between the two camps for me. You have some animals like the Simosuchus that look fairly standard for a crocodilian, while on the other side you have the wonderfully colourful Pachycephalosaurus. Even animals with fairly simple colours and patterns like the T-Rex or the Isisaurus look fantastic here. While we have very little current evidence for dinosaur colour, which is a growing field of the current science, the simple fact is that there's no reason for dinosaurs to look bland or boring. Now those are some of the goods, so let's look at some of the criticisms. This season again puts us 66 million years ago in the late Cretaceous. Now there is a good reason for this. Much of Season 2 has been created from cut content from Season 1. As a result, they were sort of stuck using this period. But using the same time period again is still something I am disappointed with regardless. I would have rather waited for a longer period than a year and gotten a more impressive product as a result. So while it was good that we did get plenty of new species, the mix of animals we got on screen did seem overly weighted in some directions. There seemed to be a dominance of sauropods and titanosaurs. While there are only 5 species of them in the season, it seemed like the show resorted to using them whenever it needed an animal. The biggest show of this was the use of the Alamosaurus at the start of the final episode, literally used only to provide a dead body for the T-Rex, or the use of unnamed Mongolian titanosaurs in the Badlands episode. It always seemed like a sauropod would show up. I would have preferred more ceratopsians or hadrosaurs being shown, and the same could be said for types of feathered raptors and troodontids who also show up a lot. plot. And the show seems to have a love affair with mentioning the word Azdarkid, and of course the mosasaurs who show up in 3 out of 5 episodes. Meanwhile, other dinosaur groups feel very unrepresented. There was only one species of ceratopsian here this time, and it was one we'd already seen a lot of. There was also only one species of ankylosaurid here. This seems to be a strange lacking of 2 big Cretaceous period animal groups, especially given the famous names located within those groups. As an experiment, I categorized all the behaviors we see in season 2. 23 behaviors were focused solely around hunting or scavenging food. That's out of 47 total distinctive behavior. In comparison, season 1 demonstrated 17 hunting or scavenging behaviors out of 51 distinct behaviors. It is also interesting to note that series 1 demonstrated more nesting behavior, more mating or getting a mate behavior, and more day-to-day behavior than season 2 did. Season 2 feels very dominated by creatures hunting or eating, while more day-to-day or interesting behaviors feel fewer and far between. As an addition here, I'd like to criticize the censoring again of the hunting scenes, a criticism that I maintain from season 1. Season 2 maintains the inability to show blood in much of its hunting. Some extreme examples of this are the plesiosaur after the mosasaur attack that hangs there in the water looking fine, the obvious use of rocks to hide the kill of a prehistoric duck, and the use of the nighttime to hide the T-Rex kill on the Edmontosaurus. While I understand that this has probably been done for rating reasons, it also comes across as trying to make these hunts child-friendly. I have seen plenty of nature documentaries where blood and bodies are depicted realistically, because that is the truth of these carnivores. By censoring it here in this program, it almost discounts from the immersion that they're going for. I'm not asking the show to turn into a gore fest, but at the same time, if you show a mosasaurus biting through the neck of a plesiosaur and then smashing it into the water to kill it, don't then break the immersion of the moment by making it look like it's just sleeping. So there are some returning species and some of the new species that I thought got the short end of the stick this season. The Tarbosaurus, for example, returns to this season after only getting a few moments in season 1. But again here, the Tarbosaurus only gets fleeting shots, and again, it's depicted in a censored hunt. I have heard people say, well, it's basically a small T-Rex, so what can they do to make it interesting? How about giving it an interesting behavior, or actually show the pack of them hunting down the sauropod directly? I can't help but think there was a lack of imagination on show here. Now let's move away from the good and the bad and tackle the elephants that are in the room. One of my favourite video game reviewers, Zero Punctuation, states that a good sequel uses the original as a stepping stone to do new things, tell new stories, or show off something different. A bad sequel, meanwhile, wallows in the original, never moving beyond its shadow. And this was in the back of my mind when I was watching this and writing this review. Having seen all of the episodes, while there is a lot to praise, I can't help but think that Season 2 is a little wallowy. Season 2 did bring back a lot of species from Season 1 that we'd already seen quite a lot of. T-Rex, for example, velociraptors, mosasaurs, and triceratops got distinctive sections in Season 1 and in Season 2. There were also some things that felt like a repetition. For example, the Nanukosaurs hunting the Ornithomimus felt like a repeat of the Ice World's hunt, and Season 2 itself often felt like they were repeating elements episode to episode, such as the Ammonites and the Mosasaur sections. I feel like Season 2 also doesn't have many classic moments. For example, the Carnotaurus dance in Season 1 has become a classic amongst the community and is still probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Even my non-dinosaur liking buddies found it memorable and still refer to it. Meanwhile, Season 2, while it had fun scenes or good moments, I cannot think of one truly standout classic moment, something I'll remember for a while, something that I would point to and say, this needs to be a GIF. There were good scenes, but nothing truly outstanding. Nothing that showed some serious imagination, like sauropod neck balls or colourful arm dances. Season 2 also felt like they were limited on the environments they were using. While the islands and swamps episode were good, the Badlands episode felt like too much of a repeat of Season 1's desert episode, and the North America episode felt like it was a cheap throwaway episode constructed with stuff we'd seen before. The Oceans episode, the one I was most looking forward to, felt bland and boring, with no risks and nothing truly unusual. And that for me is probably how I would sum up Season 2. It feels like more of the same, not really pushing the boat out or doing anything truly unusual or different. It feels like more of the same. That's not a bad thing, but it is a disappointment. There is of course one more elephant in the room, and that is the fact that it is on Apple TV streaming only. Prehistoric Planet Season 1 has not been released on DVD or Blu-ray media at all, and that means the only place you can see this show is behind Apple TV's paywall. It also means that when inevitably the show gets removed from Apple TV's service, this documentary will be gone for new viewers. This is one of the problems with our modern streaming-based digital age, and in fact, the protection and preservation of our digital history is something that is an ongoing, growing discussion. These documentaries really need to be released on DVD. However, while I have been critical of the show here, I want to bring it back to something positive. This season, even if it's not as good as Season 1, is still an amazing program. It is still a worthwhile successor to Walking with Dinosaurs, and is still one of the best dinosaur documentaries of all time. And while perhaps comparing its massive budget episodes to the smaller budget of Dinosaur with Stephen Fry may be unfair, Prehistoric Planet maintains its devotion to scientific accuracy with its information and depictions. There are no silly gaffes or mistakes left in this show. The simple fact is that Prehistoric Planet Season 2 still feels like it's been made with passion for the subject. Personally, I don't rate the second season as high as the first, but it still rates very high in general, probably at least a 7 or 8 out of 10. Now what do I think they need to do next time if, and this is a very big if, a Season 3 of the show comes? Personally, the biggest thing they have to do is move away from the dedication to the 66 million years ago time period. Moving away from this time period to the Jurassic or even just the early Cretaceous would give us completely new species and the options for unique and interesting behavior amongst those species. If they did do a Season 3 of Prehistoric Planet, what do you think they should do? Let me know down in the comments. And what do you think of the show overall? Do you think it was better or worse than Season 1? Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe while you're down there making those comments, and until next time, stay safe and goodbye.